Hello, hello. This is part 2 of my video on why do you feel anxious for no reason. In the first video, I talked you through some of the theory around why we feel anxious for no reason, and in this video, I wanted to share the personal experience that happened to me recently where I felt anxious for no reason, and then upon reflecting upon it, I really understood for the first time all this theory that I've been reading. If you haven't watched the first video, then please check it out here, but it's not necessary to watch if you want to enjoy this one. I'll start with a condensed summary of what I proposed in that first video. In the video, I shared that we feel anxious for no reason because both the trigger and the actual fear are outside of our awareness, which is why it feels like the anxiety has come out of nowhere. But it hasn't, because our mind never does anything without a reason. The experience that triggered our anxiety just got stuck in our subconscious, meaning it's just outside of our usual everyday conscious awareness. And it got stuck there because that kind of protects us from actually facing the truth of it, which could be scary and make us feel shame. Though it's not very helpful if you actually want to try and resolve those feelings of shame and anxiety. And then the actual fear that is causing us to feel anxious is a fear that's deep down buried in our unconscious. It's usually from childhood. And it requires us to really reflect and turn inward to get in touch with. I proposed that the core reason why we feel anxiety is because we're afraid of losing control. And that the actual reason behind why we're afraid to lose control is a fear of feeling shame. Specifically, it's a fear of toxic shame, which makes us feel like we don't have a right to exist. When we're children and we act in ways our parents can't handle, they shame us. Sometimes this shame is helpful. It helps us learn good boundaries and useful behaviors, and we call this healthy shame. But sometimes the shame is inappropriate, and as infants, we're incapable of distinguishing between appropriate and inappropriate shame. And so we hear this shame, which feels really bad, as a criticism not of our actions, but of who we are. And this leads us to internalize the message that I am bad. This is called toxic shame. Toxic shame feels so bad that we cut off that part of ourselves that exposed us to feeling the shame, and we decide never to feel it and never to show it and never to do it ever again. This is a very effective survival strategy for a child. However, when we become adults, we still carry those strategies within us in our unconscious, and they start dictating our lives, and it means that we struggle with normal, everyday tasks that we are capable of dealing with as adults. And this causes all sorts of dysfunctions in relation to pretty much normal and everyday stresses of life. And one of those dysfunctional reactions is anxiety. That old survival strategy that really protected us when we were a child is still trying to protect us today. But we're not children and we're not in those situations anymore. And so it's no longer a suitable strategy. What we have to do now is go back inside ourselves and feel that shame. And we need to face that shame in a safe environment with a safe person, and to the extent that we are able to in this moment, we can always come back to it as many times as we need. Healing is never done. Healing is a lifelong process. And when we finally face that shame head on, we get to let out all of that fear and that unexpressed anger that we've been holding on to since we were probably infants. Only by doing this can we really let go of that survival strategy, heal our anxiety, and start acting like grown-ups in the actual grown-up bodies that we exist in. I decided to make this second video because I had an experience recently where I was feeling anxiety for seemingly no reason. And I wanted to share with you the process of how I noticed that and how I managed and worked my way through that. I want to show you just how difficult the triggers can be to spot and the process that you might go through when you're spotting your own triggers, managing your own anxiety, and coming face to face with a little bit of your own repressed shame. So let's get into it. The other day, one of my closest colleagues at work, she's really one of my work besties, came to me with some exciting news. She said that she's going to Australia. And she's British, she's got an Australian passport through her family, and she's managed to find a job with the business that we work for that's also in Australia. And this is really amazing news. From the first day that I met her, she said, you know what? I want to go and live and work in Australia. And it's finally happening to her. And she's gotten a promotion, and she's actually the first person in my cohort of the graduate scheme that I'm on to roll off and get that promotion. So it's huge news. She's doing great. And I felt really pleased for her. And that's a lovely story. But why am I telling you this? Well, I'm telling you because later that day, I felt anxious for no reason. My chest had gotten tight and my mind was just so unfocused I could barely concentrate on anything that I was doing. I was really struggling to work and I was really confused about where this had come from. My usual trigger, which is work, didn't seem to apply here because I was actually on top of things and nothing bad was happening. And in fact, everything else in my life was also fine. So there was no reason for me to be feeling really, really quite so anxious that it was affecting me and making me unable to work. I did what I usually do when I feel anxious like this, and I took a couple minutes for myself and I decided just to consciously kind of suppress it and then make the end of my day as easy as possible, like really minimize whatever I needed to do. And then I got out of there as soon as I thought it was appropriate. But even when I got home, my anxiety stayed. And by the time I was in bed, I'd spent the whole evening distracting myself by watching YouTube, and I really didn't want to do my healthy bedtime routine of journaling and reading. I wanted to watch YouTube videos until I passed out. And so what did I do? I watched YouTube videos, and it made me feel just detached from all the crap that was going on in my head and all these horrible feelings that I still had no idea where the heck they'd come from. And then it got a little bit later, and something inside me kicked in and it said, Lewis, what are you doing? You're watching YouTube videos. You need to go to sleep. And I went, oh no. And then the voice in me sort of said again, Lewis, read your book, do your journaling. It's good for you. Remember what sort of person you're trying to be. And so I managed to put my phone down, grab my journal, and open it up. And I just wrote down, I am anxious. And I said that. I said it out loud. Often when I get stuck in my head in my anxiety, I love speaking things out loud because it just gets it out of me. And I really didn't want to face whatever was causing me to feel anxious. But I sat with it and I said, I am anxious. And I wrote down and I spoke words and I said, I am anxious, I am anxious, I am anxious. Why? I really, really, really didn't want to face it. But when I asked why, I said the first thing that came up for me. And that was, I'm anxious about rolling off the graduate scheme and having to get a permanent promotion. Ah, I noticed something in me began to shift there because that was the truth. And so I continued. I was like, why? And so what came up was, I'm anxious because if I get that promotion, then I might not be able to do my counselor training. And I also really want to do my counselor training, but I want the money of the promotion and the prestige, and I really don't want to make this decision. And there, I really knew that I was getting onto something. I could feel that my anxiety was kind of just tempering down a little bit because I was right there with it, right there with the truth. But I knew that I wasn't quite there because I've got time to make that decision, and nothing else in the day had really put pressure on me to make that decision. And so I asked myself, go on, what else is it? And then what came out of me was, My colleague getting that promotion made me feel like I was worthless and a piece of crap and that she's so much better than me. And that surprised the hell out of me. But at that moment, I just felt a weight drop out of my chest, and I knew I'd come to the root of the issue. The trigger was my friend sharing this wonderful good news that I was genuinely pleased about. But hearing her share her good news triggered me to worry that I need to make my important life decisions. And that triggered within me my toxic shame around not being enough. I felt ashamed that I wasn't good enough as her. And I felt ashamed that all of my colleagues would judge me if I didn't take this promotion, and my family would judge me, and that I was just a worthless piece of shit, you know? And so my mind kicked in, and it was trying to look after me. It kicked in and played through these anxious thoughts, and it thought, what can I do? Oh, I'll think and I'll plan my future career. That's what I'll do. That'll make me feel good. But the decision isn't now. And so I could ruminate all I wanted and spin my mind and plan out scenarios, but there was nothing I could really do because it doesn't exist right now. And if it doesn't exist right now, it can't be solved right now. And so where my mind was spinning and really trying to help, all it did was make me feel stuck in my feelings of anxiety. But at least now, I had a reason. And it was my usual fear. It was my fear of being out of control. And it was my fear of being out of control at work. And just having that little piece of truth started to help me feel more calm. And then I literally spoke to myself after I'd confessed what was really making me feel anxious. I spoke to myself like I was 2 years old and I said, "Well done, Lewis. That was really good. Look at you." Then I validated my feelings. I said, "Oh, Lewis, that is a really scary decision, you know? That's a big decision. Of course you're going to feel anxious about making that big decision. But you're okay. You're okay right now. We don't have to do it right now. Why don't we have a think about it in the morning?" And so I gave myself a big hug. I put my journal down. I picked up my book and I read until I naturally felt sleepy, and then I went to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, yeah, there was a bit of that anxiety still there. I was still thinking a little bit about what I needed to do, and I'm still thinking even, this number of days afterwards about what decision I will make. But that overwhelming fear of I am not good enough and this decision is going to kill me has gone away. And so I hope that was helpful, really sharing an authentic and genuine and vulnerable experience of me dealing with this issue. I love bringing myself and my real self into these videos, along with all the theory that I find so interesting and fascinating. And so if you're still here, thank you very much for watching. Do share whatever you'd like to share in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if this is the sort of content that you like. And I will see you in the next one.